Roy Rogers died in pain after telling everyone about his museum's secret. Leonard Franklin Sly was born Roy Rogers on November 5, 1911, in Cincinnati, Ohio. He came from nothing to become one of the most famous and loved people in American entertainment. He was famous for being the king of the cowboys and had a career that lasted for decades. People were drawn to his good looks and amazing ability. Rogers' rise from a boy from a small town to a cultural icon shows how popular he is, how hard he works, and how much he changes the Western genre in movies, TV shows, and songs. Rogers was born into a working-class family and grew up in the rural Ohio town of Duck Run. In the early 1900s, his family had a hard time making ends meet. It was hard and poor for him in his early years. Andrew Sly and Mattie Sly, his parents, they were farmers who had to deal with the problems of the Great Depression. Even though they had money problems, the Sly family stayed close, and Leonard developed a deep respect for life's simple pleasures, such as horses, nature, and music. He loved singing and playing the guitar from a very young age, which would later be very important to his success. Rogers' rise to fame began with his love of music. When he was young, he moved to California to find better job options and joined a number of musical groups, such as the Sons of the Pioneers, a singers group known across the country for their Western style in the 1930s. Rogers quickly stood out as a member because of his unique voice and charm. People liked the group's duets and the way they mixed traditional country, folk, and Western music. Their hit songs, like Cool Water and Tumbling Tumbleweeds, became classics. Rogers' time with the Sons of the Pioneers helped him become a big figure in the world of country music, and set him up for future success as both a singer and an actor. In the late 1930s, Rogers switched from music to movies when he signed with Republic Pictures, a Hollywood company known for making cheap westerns. He got his big break when he played a singing cowboy hero in the 1938 movie Under Western Stars. Movie success was the start of Roy Rogers' career as a Western movie star, and he quickly became well known. Rogers was in more than 80 movies over the next 20 years. In many of them, he played a cowboy hero who stood up for justice, helped the weak, and lived by the ideals of honesty, integrity, and kindness. His character on screen was very different from the darker, rougher cowboys of the past. This letter comes from people of all kinds liked the all-American image. Roy Rogers' carefully crafted image as a cowboy was a big part of his success. Rogers always wore a white Stetson hat, Western shirts with fringe, and cowboy boots. His horse, Trigger, became almost as famous as Rogers himself. Trigger did amazing tricks and was Rogers' loyal partner in almost all of his movies. He was known as the smartest horse in movies. Rogers' cowboy character was a romanticized view of the American West, a way of life based on morals, simplicity, and a strong bond with the land. His movies often had messages about doing what's right, being fair, and helping other people. Young fans looked up to Rogers because he was brave and knew what was right and wrong. In the 1950s, Western movies started to lose steam, but Rogers did well when he moved to TV. Roy Rogers became a well-known and loved figure in American society when The Roy Rogers Show started airing in 1951. The show had Rogers, his wife Dale Evans, his beloved horse Trigger, and his dog Bullet. It ran for 6 seasons, as they fought bad guys and found solutions in the made-up town of Mineral City. The show was a hit with viewers because it had good family values and exciting experiences. It was one of the first Western TV shows and helped make television Westerns possible for many years to come. Roger was still popular with fans well into the 1960s because he was able to adapt to changes in the entertainment industry. Roy Rogers was a famed single artist, but he also had a long-lasting relationship with his wife, Dale Evans, who was known as the Queen of the West. In 1944, they met on the set of a movie. Their chemistry on TV quickly turned into a relationship in real life. They got married in 1947 and went on to be one of the most popular and long listening to in Hollywood. Evans often co-starred with Roger in his movies and TV shows, and the two of them often sang together. Not only was Dale Evans a great actress and singer, she was also a famous songwriter. Happy Trails is their signature song, which she wrote, which became the Roy Rogers Show's theme song, and one of the most famous songs in American pop culture. Their loving relationship, on and off screen, showed the world what a good family-oriented couple Rogers and Evans were. Off-screen, Roy Rogers cared a lot about his family and his faith. He and Dale Evans had 8 children together, some of whom they adopted. They were known for being devoted to each other and having strong Christian beliefs. Their faith was very important to them, and they did a lot of good things for other people. For example, they worked with children's hospitals and the Roy Rogers Dale Evans Museum, which honored their jobs and the things they did for American entertainment. They also wrote a number of books in which they shared their personal stories and talked about how they were devoted to their faith and family ideals. This is Roy Rogers, the famous cowboy actor and singer. Millions of people loved him for his parts in westerns and for living up to the honor, honesty, and bravery that his characters showed. Behind the scenes, though, Roy Rogers' health and happiness were getting worse and worse as he got older. His death came after a time of pain that shocked his fans. The secret he told about his favorite Roy Rogers and Dale Evans Museum, on the other hand, made his last days more mysterious and sad, that had been important to him for many years. There was more to the Roy Rogers Dale Evans Museum than just memorabilia about the King of the Cowboys and his famous wife, Dale Evans. They worked hard on it out of love, and it shows how successful their lives were and how much they helped popularize the American West. It used to be in Victorville, California, but it moved to Branson, Missouri, and now it is there. Trigger, his famous horse, had been kept alive after he died and put on show. Fans could also see Roy's cowboy gear, movie posters, costumes, and many personal things that showed how he rose from nothing to becoming a famous actor. As Roy got older, though, the museum story got darker. People stopped going to the museum as time went on, even though he was famous, and it was a sign of a lot of things. Part of the reason for this drop in guests was that people's tastes have changed. Westerns used to be a big part of American entertainment, but now they're not as popular. Plus, younger people didn't feel as connected to the time of cowboys, thieves, and frontier justice. Because of this, the museum had a hard time making ends meet. This was a terrible blow to Roy. He wanted the museum to be more than just a record of his work. It was also a way for people to remember him and Dale after they were gone. Rogers told those closest to him a sad truth in his last days. He had worked very hard to keep the museum open, but now it had to be sold. His heart was heavy with that choice. Not only because it cost him a lot of money, but also because it meant the end of an age. Roy had based his life on the values of the Old West, like being independent and not giving up, and the museum was a real representation of those values. For him, seeing it fail was a sign that his time and the Cowboys' time were ending. Roy's painful fall began when the museum was sold. He told his family and friends that the end of the relationship made him feel like he had lost, and that he would never fully get over it. Roy's health began to get worse in the months after the sale. He was sick with a number of things, such as heart problems, and the stress and sadness of having to close his museum. His beloved wife, Dale Evans, was by his side, but the loss of the museum hurt him too much for even her loyal support to heal. Roy Rogers thought about his impact in the last days of his life. He was very famous and had been in a lot of movies. His hit songs had also sold millions of records. But as he lay in bed in the quiet, he couldn't get rid of the sadness that the museum, which had been the home of his life's work, was gone. It was a reminder of how short-lived fame and success are, and how time can weaken even the most cherished organizations. Roy Rogers died on July 6, 1998. He was 86 years old. Rogers died in his Apple Valley, California, home of heart failure. His death was very sad for everyone who loved the old westerns, but it was especially painful for those who knew him. He was happy and healthy all his life. The museum's closing had cast a heavy cloud over his last years, though. A lot of people thought that his death meant the end of the Old West, a sign of the end of an age that had once captured the hearts of millions. The story of Roy Rogers' death and the fact that the museum is no longer there is a powerful warning of how quickly memories fade. People who were very important to American society can have sad endings. Still, even though his last days were sad, Roy Rogers will always be remembered as a cowboy hero, on and off the screen. His contributions to movies, music, and American society will live on. His museum is no longer there, but Roy Rogers' legend goes on, showing how strong the cowboy spirit is.